So for this class, because mostly we're standing, we're going to do some mat practice and also look at breathing and sitting meditation, if you want to call it that, or just sitting practice. If you're comfortable getting up and down from the floor, then you can come onto the mat. And we're just going to lie down on our backs. So we'll start in a rested position. You could call it semi-supine. And just so far in the course, we've looked at structural principles and integration, 6 directions. So we're still going to be looking at those, particularly the integration and 6 directions ideas. And by touching the ground in different ways, different orientations, it gives you a better sense of 6 directions because you're literally changing your sides of your body in contact with the ground. If you think of the cube, so you're changing which surfaces are on the ground of the 6 sides. So we're not going to do a whole lot of postures, but just a few key orientations of the body. So we're starting here with this supine or semi-supine position. And to begin with, just find the ground, feel the points of touch, relax. So just let yourself kind of roll around. You can roll the legs to side, like the knees. Drift side to side. Just feel the changing contact of the pelvis. You can take the feet off the ground. You can let the pelvis come off the ground. Just explore the points of touch. You've got the back of the head, shoulders. You could have the arms and the hands. You've got the waist. And the kind of, in Tai Chi we talk about the Ming Men, so the back of the lumbar spine. The back of the pelvis, so like the sacroiliac joint area. Then the feet, so the feet can be the same touch of the feet as when standing. So it can be the balls of the feet and the heels, inside and outside. The edges of the feet if we're rolling the knees. So in terms of 6 directions, this is the ground, and it's normally this is behind us, this direction if we're standing, but now it's the ground. So you can immediately feel the touch. So in some of the videos we're talking about like wall, having the wall behind you. So here's the wall behind you. It's now the floor. Difference also is the weight of gravity is coming through us. So you can feel the weight of the body on the ground. So we can do things like take one foot off the ground and then the other foot, and just feel the changing pressure on the ground when you change, taking parts off, or I can roll to the side, take part of the shoulder off, the other side. And we're going to try and map out the sense of 6 directions and inner and outer engagement, opening and closing, so the same principles. So when we're standing, sometimes we lift the hands up above our heads to feel the stretch up through the core. So this way, the hands would be behind you, not so much up to the ceiling, but behind the head. So it might be up that direction. And sometimes I'll clasp the hands and feel like I'm sort of pulling or holding something behind my head or above my head. And I can feel the stretch of the core in that position. What I'm not particularly trying to do is press the back on the ground. So the idea of the Ming Men and the turtle, we'll kind of put that to one side for a minute, and we're trying to feel more the core engaging. Usually if we're doing this practice in yoga, there's an idea of shavasana or corpse pose where you might close the eyes, but for now we'll keep the eyes open. So we're trying to stay alert and awake, but relaxed. So they're stretching the core. You can also feel with that stretch, if I try and feel this pelvic floor coming up through the core. So the gravity is kind of taking. So here I can reach the hands up, or I can feel like a pull up, so I'm pulling towards myself. pelvic floor and core. Just need to watch the microphone. So I'm putting one hand here to keep the microphone from falling, but feeling the core lifting, stretching, and the pelvic floor coming into the body, pulling up towards me. I'll engage the arches of the feet, and the hand is just to stretch through the body. So this gives me a different feeling of that same engagement that we're looking for in standing. The way gravity is going down here, it's kind of in line with that rising up through the body. So the belly kind of falls back naturally, up and back through the torso. So I'm not trying to flatten the back, I'm allowing the lumbar curve to be there for the moment. I can explore that feeling of flattening the back when I lift the legs or hug the knees in, but when I'm in this supine position, just naturally curved back. I think we might have covered this in one of the other classes on the structural integration, the feeling of sort of pulling inwards. So I could pull the hand in, pull the foot in, pulling inwards. And I've probably mentioned that if somebody was holding your hand or holding your foot, if you got two people to do it, you can feel the pulling inwards. Gathering inwards through the shoulders, through the hips, into the center, into the spine. And there's this good quote from Vanda Scaravelli about you have to stop the pushing and pulling to allow the spine to elongate. So this integration in towards the spine is allowing that. I could also think of the crown of the head, so the top of the spine at the opposite end from the pelvic floor. So just feeling in Tai Chi the moon on the head. So you can just touch the crown of your head and feel the skull is part of the spine, the neck, the pelvic floor is the other end, through the legs, through the feet. So that's one of the directions, as well as just the touch of the body on the ground. So feeling all points of contact. And Mark, who I trained in yoga with, would say, make the touch equal, make the touch kind. So feel the weight might not be exactly equal, but just the awareness of all points of touch are equal, and looking for a lightness, like in Chen Manqing's image, he's walking on thin ice. So the light sense of touch with the feet, but then also with the pelvis, with the shoulders and the head, like you're not breaking the ice. So just be aware of the nature of the touch. And here we're going to work a little bit more with breathing. So you could feel the sense of the feeling of the breath and the touch together. We'll do a bit more work on the breath in this class. So from the ground, we can look at heaven and earth. So the arrangement of heaven and earth is this way in this orientation. So the tops of the knees, if I have the hands here, the elbows, they're kind of supporting heaven. You can imagine like a tabletop or some plank or something resting on top of me. I could press the elbows up slightly and feel the knees sort of go up and feel this earth behind me. So that way I'm starting to relate between heaven and earth. But they're different surfaces, so it's the back and the front of the body. You could feel the forehead and the back of the head. You can be aware of the sternum and the core of the body, that's still at the top. Hips are resting back, knees up, and the feet on the ground. One of Brett's things is feel the top of the feet. So in that case, this is like in the heaven area, top of the feet and the sole of the foot. Also in the top of the body, in this orientation, is the collarbones. So I can feel the shoulder blades on the ground, the collarbones in space or upwards, and just feel that opening between the shoulder blade and the collarbone. So you can feel this space in between as well. So you can imagine like you're touching the ceiling or you're supporting heaven with the hands, so the hands supporting heaven. You could also take one leg and feel maybe the foot is touching the ceiling. Feel the connection between the foot and the back, between the ball of the foot, sacrum, and the hip coming back, and the foot up. So rather than trying to stretch the leg away, feel there's a two-way connection or relationship between the foot and the ground, or between the hand, back of the head, the back of the body. Could be all of the limbs, like you're kind of supporting the ceiling, but it's connecting to the ground behind you. Whether it's one, two, or all four. Could be the elbows and the knees. And as you're doing that, just try and breathe into it, so as if the breath fills the space between heaven and earth. The breath filling the body, between the touch of the ground and the touch of space. You can still feel this pulling through the core, this what would be vertical if we're standing, but now it's horizontal in that sense. Another horizontal direction in this orientation is the sides of the body. So in a sense, that's still horizontal if you were standing. So the feeling of sides of the hips, the sides of the shoulders, the sides of the ribs. If I take my hands on the sides of the ribs here, that's not the front, that's the side. So the side of your body here under the armpit, feel the ribs there. And if I tune in with the breathing, and the inhale, I can try and feel an expanding, widening, and try and keep that feeling of the widening. It's like the intercostal muscles opening, the ribs opening, the lungs opening, and then just relax. So try and feel that on the inhale. You can even actively push out a bit to expand the ribs at the sides, not the front. And then when you exhale, see if you could keep that effort of expanding outwards on your exhale. Again, in this Scaravelli quote, she talks about the elongation, particularly on the exhale. So there's a feeling of something happens on the exhale, which can be a release of the spine or release into movement. But feeling that from the widening out, from the collarbones out to the shoulder joint, you could feel this sort of widening across the shoulder girdle that relates to the widening of the ribs. And also, if you take the hands to the sides of the pelvis, you could imagine a sort of widening across the hip joints, like the hip joints are expanding. If I imagine holding a ball between the legs, I could feel a little bit, it's like the horse, a bit of that expansion. Hips, ribs, shoulders, even the sides of the neck and the sides of the head. So we're still working with 6 directions, sides. What's normally above me is the crown of the head and the core, pelvic floor. Normally in front of me is now the heaven, so that's above here. It's also the core here, collarbones, crown of the head, sorry, forehead, even your nose and your chin. Anything that's in front of you is now above the ground. Tops of the feet. The hips are dropping back. Behind you, you have the arch of the foot, ball of the foot, the heel, sacrum, pelvis, the lumbar curve, or you can feel the Mingmen, back of the waist, shoulders, back of the neck, back of the head. If we have the hands like this, we're mirroring the elbows and knees. And then just feel the whole body like a space, so you feel that sense of everything just filling. But especially you can tune in with the back on the ground. And I'll make another video where we'll explore more movement in these positions. So you've got things like supine twists or the kind of bridge posture, back bending, shoulder stand, or plow, the yoga postures. But for now, we're just going to make a shorter video with the main orientations of the body changing. And you can see this as a complement to the standing practice and the structural practice. So I can also notice as I change position, so as I come up from the floor, how the points of contact have changed and the orientation in space has changed. So I'm back through the crown of the head upwards. I can use my hands and any point of contact to move around. So these little movements of changing connection, and you could transition to standing or to turning over onto all fours or sitting cross-legged. So just notice the points of touch. So here's the sides of my legs, sides of my foot, hands, part of that foot. If I change around, just change the surfaces that are in contact, which could be rolling back to where we were, rolling side to side. So however you come up from here, it might be sideways. Notice how you move and how you're touching the ground. So we'll come round to all fours. And we'll maybe mirror the previous position with this time the elbows and forearms on the ground. Knees and tips of the toes touching. And again, just kind of roll around and feel the points of touch. And you can take parts on and off. So one leg or the knee. You can even change between the palms and the forearms. The weight can shift back and forward. You might take one leg back. Just exploring that. And just kind of repeating the process of finding the ground, finding the touch, relax, make the touch, the awareness of the points of contact equally aware. Also, the idea of walking in thin ice, try and touch lightly, or at least with awareness that you're not just heavy collapsing on the ground, you're touching. And touching is feeling, so you're feeling the touch. And as you change the weight and roll around, you'll feel the different sensations. Relax and breathe into that. And then we can start to kind of look for the six directional feeling. Doesn't need to be in any particular order. So heaven and earth, for example, this is the earth I'm touching. Heaven is now behind me. So this is a bit more like the turtle. So in yoga, the turtle would be from here, like cat pose. So that's kind of opening the back. You've got cat and cow. So you've got the lumbar curve, or you've got open the Mingmen. So you can explore that. Upwards towards the ceiling, back of the head, back of the shoulders, back of the waist, opening Mingmen, feeling the sacroiliac area. On the legs, you've got the heels, the calves and things coming upwards, but you're probably more clear about the knees on the ground and the toes on the ground, but you can just be aware of the back of the legs. And then again, the sides of the body. So wide through the ribs, out through the shoulders, hips, like you're sitting on the horse. You've got the sides of the legs and the inner leg, outside of the arms and the inside of the arms. So in Tai Chi, this is a bit like holding a ball position. So you can be aware of the ball. This is also the front of the body here. So if I was resting on like a bolster or something, I can imagine, or hugging a tree, I can imagine connecting to that space between myself and the mat. Vertically would be that way normally. So we've got the moon on the head, but now that's going horizontally. So I could imagine pushing my head against the wall, or if you were a dog or something, you had eyes coming out this part of the skull. Crocodile, so looking out through the top of your skull. The other end is the pelvic floor and the core, so I can recreate that feeling of stretching up through the body. So it might be reaching out or reaching the leg out to feel this core engaging or pelvic floor engaging. I can do that sort of cross body engagement. And because the belly's kind of hanging down in gravity, you can try and pull up a little bit more. So engage, maybe engage the breath to do that and feel the widening of the ribs, pulling up through the pelvic floor, up through the core, wide across the shoulders, out through the crown of the head. You can feel the back of the head. So again, we're working with 6 directions, also integration and expansion, using the different orientation of the body to become more aware of how that works. Again, another video we might make just to show different exercises, different postures, but things like one leg off. From here, you can go into things like plank. But we're not going to do that so much today. It's just a more abbreviated version. But in yoga, there's downward dog, elbow dog, different positions here. This might take me into a headstand as well, this position. And for the purposes of a beginner's course, I'm not going to do anything as adventurous as that, but that's a good posture to change your orientation so you're inverted. I'll maybe just demonstrate it later, but I wouldn't encourage you to do that unless you're experienced at it. Okay. Another position, just to get the sense of 6 directions, that's useful is to be on your side. So if I just let the side of the body rest on the ground, side of the torso, side of the legs, and feel that connection. Where you put your other hand, you might need to rest, support the head. But I could feel, particularly through the breath, so this practice allows you to engage the breathing more strongly. So I can feel how the breath sort of connects me to the ground here, also how the breath on this side as well. So I'm feeling that feeling of the ribs opening, but on one side it's touching the ground. Also letting the side of the foot and the side of the leg be a point of touch and point of support. In yoga, you might stretch this leg up or something, but we're not really looking to do that at the moment. Just feel the sides, feel the breath, feel the touch of the side of your body. And in Brett's words, this is like the wall, but now it's the ground. And if I'm back into supine, I can roll over to the other side. So I could roll between left and right. From supine position, I can roll all the way to the side and try and feel the side of the body on the ground. Heaven is now this way. This is horizontal, the core engaging. So using maybe one leg off the ground can engage the core, can engage the hand in space. Just finding the sort of 6 directions on your side and on the other side. So the ground being here, heaven being this way. Still up through the center, pelvic floor. Behind me is the back, that way. So I could still feel the back engaging behind. up through the crown of the head. Whole body, 6 directions. So whether I'm on my back, on my side, or on my all fours position, we're trying to map out the same engagements with different orientations. So yeah, if you're not experienced with yoga or doing headstands and things like that, be very careful. Don't try anything without probably being supervised into it, or maybe go to a yoga class and learn how to do it. But just to show you the idea, so from all fours, like I mentioned before, you can feel you sort of resting your head on the wall. That gives you part of the feeling of an inversion, or the weight, bearing some weight through your head. So this is kind of like the moon on the head. So you can try that. Obviously, that's fairly risk-free. So having that contact with the wall through the head, I can still go into the 6 directions. So I could feel the core, feel the sides, open the back, breathe, and feel the spine sort of contained at both ends and from the sides. And that's probably enough of a headstand that you might ever do. But that's the same feeling that I replicate when I do a headstand. So for me, it's not much different. It's not a big change to go from there to a headstand. I still feel everything engaging. I just replace the wall with the floor as the point of contact. I would go into a kind of elbow dog type posture. But just making sure that I'm not forcing myself up. When I started yoga, there was a lot of throwing yourself against the wall. In this version of it, there's not. I don't feel very much of that at all. And that's one of the markers of something different in the practice, when you don't feel that. Again, another posture you can do inverted, and this is part of 6 directions is inversion. So I'm just showing you, but I'm also cautioning you to be very careful if you've not done these things. A handstand is a bit different. All the weight's going through the hands. But it's still an inversion, and you can learn something about the 6 directions from it. I know there's one Tai Chi teacher in Edinburgh that used to do handstands, part of the Wudang school. But here again, it's this similar feeling to like finding the connections. Part of the challenge of handstand is finding the lines through the shoulders, finding from the hand through the shoulder into the spine, but I'm still maintaining 6 directions. And I'd go via like a downward dog position. So this kind of position. So it's harder to maintain that than headstand for me, but after that, I usually feel a much clearer feeling through the shoulder girdle. So it's much more kind of activated and open. But yeah, these inverted postures are not something you would do unless you're familiar with them. Don't want to injure yourself. Okay, so when we're coming to sitting, there's a lot of options for sitting. So often if I'm sitting for a longer period, I'll do like a kneeling posture, but I might kneel on like these blocks. I could sit cross-legged. not very good at the kind of Burmese or half lotus, all that stuff. My hip joints don't seem to open that much after many years, but I've not really don't force myself to do it. But from a 6 directions point of view, cross-legged is useful for feeling the edge of the foot, the sit bones, and the vertical engagement, so like stretching upwards, finding the sides and the back, crown of the head. And one of my teachers would do this, so it'd feel like you could start to stand up, so you feel the up direction as well as down. You can come off the ground. But again, it's useful just to play around with these seated positions, changing the legs, changing the points of contact. That might take you into kind of yoga type postures. For me, sitting is more of a challenge. I feel more stiff in the legs than some people. But it's still a practice that's useful just to keep myself a degree of flexibility in the hamstrings and mobility on the floor. So in yoga, you have like staff posture or wide-legged posture, one leg out. Also things like twists. But for me, for this class, we're just exploring being on the ground and changing the leg positions. In yoga, this is a bit like pigeon. So you can roll the legs side to side into a kind of pigeon type position. Use the hands, use the ground. And then if you are in a position, you could try and find the 6 directions and see if that feels a bit easier than just being down or just thinking of stretching. So that's kind of working towards sitting, or it can be how you move from the ground to come up or from up to down. So just change the contact points. You can try it with the hands on the ground, without the hands on the ground. And some of this, if for people like me, it will feel like you're stretching in these positions. So there is an element of stretch. And there's nothing wrong with working on that as the focus, but then I can also work on the heaven and earth and the space as well. So that's still going to be a stretch, but it's got a different feeling, and the mind's in a different zone than just focusing in on my hamstring. And that was the yoga training I did was like that. We didn't really focus on stretching. It was more about the ground, the space, the center, the breath, and the process of the whole body, not trying to stretch or achieve contortions or anything. But sometimes through that process, you'd find more mobility, more integration, more strength, and things like, for me personally, headstands, handstands became way easier and way more achievable because of the kind of core engagement and balance of the body, not just straining my neck or just the shoulders. So everyone's going to have their mobility challenges or physical limitations, so you work with those and don't force yourself. For me, sitting is more challenging than headstand. But the next part of the class, we're going to focus a bit on the breathing, settling into a posture of your choice, and then in towards more of a meditation practice. But still based around the 6 directional space type practices that we're building into the Tai Chi. So it's all the same practice. So for this, you could choose a position that you're generally reasonably comfortable in, that doesn't feel like you're overstretching. So for me, I might not sit like this because it might start to feel I'm working too much with the legs rather than being able to feel the whole body. So if I was sitting on a chair, if that's comfortable for you, have your back off the chair, probably a more comfortable chair than this one, but a kind of hard chair is good, like a dining room chair. Have the feet in a way that it feels like you're standing on the feet or sort of springy in the legs. Have the spine generally vertical, like you're wearing them in on the head, and the pillar of heaven is vertical. The wings are floating, you're not collapsing or too tense in the spine. So the same as we would be in standing posture, and you could practice this as a kind of qigong sitting position. I would tend to be slightly on the balls of the feet, but you can have the heels down. You could have the heels up as well, just depends. Hands could be kind of holding a ball if we're doing it as a qigong, or just resting under the ball if we're meditating or moving towards more stillness. Palms can be down, palms can be up. You can have a mudra like this kind of thing. Just to explore what's comfortable, but a kind of neutral position would be just palms resting down. Occasionally I might do something like have the hands up to feel the connection through the moon on the head, and I might occasionally stretch the arms up to stretch through the core. So we're still doing 6 directions, moon on the head, walking on thin ice. That includes the touch of the sit bones on the chair, not too heavy, equally connected through the feet, and the hands touching as well lightly. I can still be aware of the sides, like the horse between the legs, the breath wide across the ribs, open across the collarbones. You might still have a sense of the sort of Ming Men opening slightly, the core and stretching upwards, engaging upwards. Chen Manqing's 8 methods, walking an ice moon in the head, but you can also think of sitting like a sail in the wind. So you're supported from the space around you as well. So if you prefer a sort of kneeling posture, this gives me a feeling of being a bit more grounded, touching the ground more. Here I'm sitting on a few yoga blocks, which just allows me to sit more comfortably upright. Still the same process. Now I've got the touch of the shins and the tops of the feet, the touch of the sit on the block, seat on the block, stretching up, just practicing the physical engagements. And it is a bit like this jumping, like I could jump up somehow, stretch up. Use the breath, feel the widening of the body with the breath. Opening the back of the head, top of the head. Free across the collarbones, not pushing the chest out, not collapsing. Again, the hands you can explore the space as a qigong exercise, use the hands, or you can just rest the hands in any position you prefer. So still be aware of the touch of the ground, touch of the space. Gathering into the center is an option as well, so we can feel stretching and gathering inwards, then opening outwards. So just tuning in with the breathing for a few moments and a few different suggestions or explorations. So if we're sitting like the sail in the wind, you could feel the wind against your skin. and the breath coming in and out through the pores. And just stay open in the whole body, feeling the skin or the whole surface of the body breathing. That takes us a bit into the realms of the internal space, so you can feel from the whole surface of the body, the internal space between the surfaces, inside the surfaces. So the sense of the breath can be a light awareness, just a feeling the breath is not restricted and the body's relaxing, open and buoyant. But in yoga practice, we can do more sort of dynamic engagements of the breath that change or engage the more internal structural muscles, breathing muscles, the pelvic floor, the core. So that can be a useful way to start sitting practice, so you feel you're energized and supported, and then you can relax and open from there, rather than feeling heavy and stiff or in some discomfort and just enduring the discomfort. So it makes sense to work with your body rather than against it. So here, rather than have the belly totally relaxed and heavy, I'll stretch it slightly. Again, this is the feeling of lifting the arms to stretch. And the part of the solar plexus here where the bottom of the ribs meets the abdomen. When I exhale, I can feel that area engaging and sort of gathering inwards rather than collapsing outwards. So stretching up. And on the exhale, if you take a kind of long, deep exhale, keeping the ribs wide and the back open, you can feel this kind of greyhound abdomen, or the strong engagement of the core with the exhale, which is supporting my spine, sitting me upright, a bit like squeezing a tube of toothpaste or something and toothpaste coming up. You could think of it as a kind of girdling process as well. While I'm heavy and relaxed in the belly, it's the opposite. It's like collapsing. So this is not just pulling your muscles in, but using the breath. I can be lightly aware of the Ming Men area and let the sort of turtle shell open slightly behind me. So there's a kind of counterbalance of stretch, engage the core, lightly open the turtle shell. So I'm not just arching the back, I'm balancing the back by opening the shell behind me. So you've got the greyhound at the front and the turtle at the back. We spoke about this before. At the top of the spine, you might think of the cobra and the moon on your head, and that's giving me sort of free feeling in the spine. The shoulders are, like I said, the crane wings, so they're open. Pelvic floor up, like I'm sitting on the horse. Same as we covered in the standing practice. And this might feel very dynamic, very strongly engaged. And this is a good place to start from, with strong engagement. And it will help your Tai Chi standing posture to be able to sit well. In a sense, we're focused more on the torso, not the legs are doing less of the work. Sometimes in standing, the legs can overwork, especially on one leg postures. So here there's much more strong engagement, developing the torso and the spine. So this is the center of the posture. So just a couple of simple breathing techniques from yoga, kind of pranayama type stuff. One simple way to kind of activate the core is just to take a couple of sort of panting breaths or faster breaths. Can be either through the nose or the mouth. Try and engage the pelvic floor and the abdomen. With that, I could also feel like I'm sort of pushing out parts of the torso to like fill them out or open them out. So it might be around the collarbones, different sounds you might make, or the turtle. I'm trying to find different parts of the torso and kind of puff them open. This also engages the core in towards the spine. So with that, you can explore the breath around the collarbones, the breath around the ribs, the breath around the lower back, middle, shoulders, and maintaining the connections in 6 directions. Another breathing engagement you can do is to focus the breath in the shoulder area, so like across the collarbones, high in the lungs. So my yoga teacher would say, smile the breath in across the shoulder. So you're filling out the shoulder area, lightening out the wings. The opposite of heavy, pulled down shoulders. Let the breath float the shoulders open and let the core engage on the exhale. So you've got the kind of toothpaste tube squeezing, shoulders opening. And you might find you naturally move into a more meditative state from having put the effort in to create the structure and sitting. So as that happens, you can just let the breath gently keep the body inflated a bit like a hot air balloon, and you just occasionally pull on the gas or whatever it is to keep it floating, but it doesn't have to be taking it off the ground. It's not that big effort. You're already kind of floating and upright with not too much effort. So use the breath and the openness to keep the buoyancy and the inflation in the posture without overdoing it and feeling like you're rising the chi, as they would say. So you still have the feeling of relaxed, grounded feeling. It is the balance of 6 directions in yin and yang. So you've got up and down. Naturally, the body's heavy and gravity is down. And in meditation practice or breathing practice, you can choose a point of focus. It might be the abdomen or the heart. Some people would do it in the nostrils, or it can just be the whole body breathing. Also, when I started meditation, people would count the breath. So that's just a way to focus the mind. It seems a bit unnatural to me now to do that. So I would just feel the body and feel the breath. But if your mind's very distracted, you could try counting. So it would be like inhale 1, exhale 2, work up to 10 and then back down, something like that. Or you can just go 1, 2, or thinking inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. One of my Buddhist teachers, the early years, 20 years ago, he just initially would say, breathing in, the mind is becoming relaxed. Maybe slightly retaining or holding the breath for a minute, and then breathing out, the body's becoming relaxed. So you could say a little phrase. Thich Nhat Hanh uses a lot of these little phrases. Again, if you find that helpful, you could play with that. If not, you might just prefer to sit quietly and not be thinking or contriving any stuff. So there are hundreds probably of meditation exercises or ways of practicing. But probably the simplest one is we just maintain the buoyancy of the posture, the feeling of open, relaxing and staying open, maintaining the shape through the breath, through the space and touch. You might need to reinflate, and you might even need to do some stretching to bring back the support. We don't have to sit here for hours. You can sit for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Generally sitting for a bit longer. So Thich Nhat Hanh himself said, it's like cooking potatoes. You need to sit for maybe 20 minutes to get the effect. Depends what effect you're looking for, but if you're looking for a more definite change in your mind state, probably a bit longer than 5 minutes. And as a practice, you might call it just sitting, trying to sit still without forcing yourself tensely to sit still, but just having the intention to sit, say, for 20 minutes and not particularly move around too much. But the stillness might emerge gradually. So if you feel you're still needing to do this sort of yoga posture and breath engagements, even if you did that for the whole time, that's fine. You're building up the posture and the practice. At some point, you might be able to let go and just sit. And this feeling of inner space or outer space, in Buddhism, they talk about jhana and these kind of formless states. When you sit still, it's a bit like a sensory deprivation thing. So the physical body might start to fade away a little bit and you feel more just space, and you might feel the breath or just a feeling of awareness without much physical solidity, which for Tai Chi is a good place to get to. It's the open and empty feeling. It is equivalent to the buoyancy and the 6 directions. As we've said, Tai Chi and Wuji is from yin and yang to no polarity, or from 6 directions to one Chi. So the feeling of one Chi is just one experience sitting. Like Wolf Lowenthal said, a being of Chi and a sea of Chi. So it's just a feeling of fullness or emptiness, stillness. But there may be an element of what you call Kung Fu or Gong Fu. You have to sit with some determination to break through resistance, or in Buddhism, hindrances. So it might be laziness or anxiety or whatever. So the feeling of enduring, maintaining the shape for however long you choose, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or an hour. So not really paying attention to thoughts, just letting thoughts either be there or not. But usually the feeling of when the body becomes more spacious, the mind becomes more spacious, the thoughts settle. And if you find you're troubled by thoughts, you can use things like a mantra or a counting, or just the feeling of enduring the physical posture and see what happens. You could set yourself a challenge to sit for a longer period and see what happens. You might find the thoughts naturally dissipate. So in Tai Chi, we're working with the mind. The mind leads the Chi. So here we're kind of clearing the mind, expanding the mind. So the more your body and mind open, the more the Chi can fill. It's just a simple idea. So this fullness of Chi is like the openness of the mind and the open or emptiness of the body. So if we can feel that in a meditation practice, we can relate it into the Tai Chi practice as well. And we might do our standing practice as a meditation as well. So there might just come a point at which you feel you've done enough, or if you set a timer, you just wait till the timer goes off, or you might finish before that. If you feel the mind has changed, the body has changed, that might be enough. But allow yourself enough time without getting frustrated with thoughts or pain and discomfort in the body. You have to put in the time in the practice.